Chris Watts, the family man who had a dark secret. In the quiet suburbs of Frederick, Colorado, the Watts family lived what seemed like an American dream. A beautiful home, a loving wife, 2 adorable daughters, and a baby on the way. To neighbors and friends, Chris and Shanann, Watts were the picture of a perfect life. Smiling faces, family vacations, social media posts filled with joy and gratitude. But beneath the glow of suburban perfection, something dark and fragile was forming. Something that would soon destroy everything. It was August 13th, 2018. The sun was just beginning to rise over the calm Colorado neighborhood when Shanann Watts' friend, Nicole Atkinson, noticed something was wrong. Shanann had returned home from a late business trip around 2 a.m. She was supposed to go to a doctor's appointment that morning, a prenatal checkup for her 3rd pregnancy, but she never showed up. She didn't respond to calls, to texts. Nicole drove to the Watts home, uneasy. The kids' toys sat still on the lawn, the house silent. She knocked, no answer. She called Chris. He said he was at work, that Shanann had taken the kids somewhere, but Nicole's instincts screamed otherwise. Soon, she called the police. When officers arrived, Chris met them at the door. He looked calm, too calm. He allowed them inside. The house was neat, nothing seemed disturbed. But Shanann's purse was there, her phone, her wedding ring. No mother leaves a house without those. The officers noticed Chris' detached composure. He talked about his wife and kids in the past tense. He didn't ask the police to find them. He simply stood there, arms folded, as if waiting for something inevitable. By that evening, the news had spread. A pregnant mother and 2 little girls missing from their home. The perfect family was now the center of a nightmare. The next day, Chris appeared on local television. His words were shaky, rehearsed. He pleaded for his family to come home, but his eyes told another story. The public saw a man trying too hard seem broken. Investigators were already suspicious. They had noticed inconsistencies in his story. He said he and Shanann had argued that she took the girls to a friend's house, but her car was still in the garage. And when detectives checked his phone records, they found something chilling. He had been texting another woman. Her name was Nicole Kessinger. She worked with Chris at Anadarko Petroleum. And while Shanann posted about her loving husband online, Chris had been living a secret life. With Nicole, he was carefree, the man he always wanted to be. No obligations, no kids, no stress. Just desire and escape. But that fantasy was built on lies, and soon he would destroy everything to live it. As investigators began to close in, Chris agreed to take a polygraph test. The examiner asked him if he had harmed his family. He said no, but the results were clear: deception detected. When the truth began to unravel, Chris's mask fell apart. He finally confessed, not to everything, not yet, but enough to reveal his monstrous secret. He claimed Shanann had killed their daughters in a fit of rage, and he killed her in response. But detectives didn't believe him. The story didn't fit the evidence. They knew this wasn't a crime of passion. It was planned, cold, methodical. On August 15th, 2018, after hours of interrogation, Chris finally broke. The weight of his lies crushed him, and the truth spilled out. That morning, while Shanann was still asleep, he straddled her and strangled her to death. Their daughters, Bella and Celeste, had been awake. They asked him where their mother was, and with chilling calm, he told them she was fine. Then he drove them, their small, frightened faces staring up at him, to an oil site owned by his company. There, in the silence of the Colorado plains, he ended their lives too. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave and stuffed his daughter's tiny bodies into oil tanks, all so he could start fresh with his new lover, to live the fantasy of freedom. But there is no freedom for a man who kills his family. There's only the silence of guilt and the echo of tiny voices that never fade. The confession shocked the world. The story was everywhere, on TV, on social media, in the hearts of millions. People asked how a man could destroy something so pure. Neighbors cried. Strangers lit candles. The Watts home became a symbol of deception, of how evil can hide behind a smile. In court, Chris pleaded guilty to all 9 counts of murder. He showed no emotion as the sentence was read. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. But even in prison, the horror lingers. Guards say he keeps to himself, often reading the Bible. He says he hears his daughter's voices at night. He told investigators that Bella's last words were, "Daddy, no." There are no words that can explain such darkness, only silence. After his confession, the world struggled to understand. How could a man who seemed so normal, so devoted, turn into a monster overnight? For months, investigators pieced together every text, every photo, every video. Shanann's Facebook was filled with love. Clips of her daughters giggling, of Chris smiling beside them. To the world, he was a devoted father, a husband who adored his family. But deep down, he was becoming something else. Distant, hollow, detached. Shanann sensed it. She felt him slipping away. In the weeks before her death, she texted friends about her fears. She said Chris wasn't the same anymore. He wasn't touching her, wasn't talking to her, wasn't there. She thought he was stressed about the baby, but he was falling in love with another woman. Nicole Kessinger said she had no idea he was married when they first met. By the time she found out, she said she was already emotionally attached. They went camping, exchanged love notes, talked about building a new life together. Chris told her he was at the end of his marriage, that it was mutually over, but that was a lie, and that lie would soon consume them all. In his interviews from prison, Chris said he felt trapped, that he didn't know how to end things with Shanann without hurting her. So he chose the unthinkable. He told himself it was mercy, that he was sparing her the pain of rejection. But what he really wanted was to erase his old life completely. He said he killed Shanann because he wanted to be free. But freedom built on death is a prison of its own. When detectives recovered Shanann's body, the nation wept. Pregnant, buried in a shallow grave. Her daughter's remains had to be drained from the oil tanks. A horrifying process that broke even the most seasoned investigators. One officer said it was the hardest day of his career. In the courtroom, Shanann's family faced a man who destroyed their world. Her father said, "I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them." Chris sat expressionless, his eyes fixed on the floor. He never looked up as the judge sentenced him to life. Not once, but 5 times. One for each life he took, and one for the unborn child who never got a chance to breathe. And yet, people still asked why. Why did a man with no history of violence suddenly decide to murder his entire family? Experts say it was a perfect storm of narcissism, fantasy, and cowardice. Chris wasn't insane, he was weak. He couldn't face consequences, couldn't face imperfection. So he destroyed the reality that didn't match his fantasy. In one of his prison letters, Chris wrote, "I felt like something else was controlling me, but that something wasn't a demon. It was his own selfishness." the darkness that grows when love becomes possession and pride becomes poison. Shanann's story lives on through the people who loved her. Her friends share her videos online, moment of her laughing, dancing, holding her daughters, to remind the world that she was more than a headline. She was a mother, a dreamer, a believer in love. The Watts house still stands, a silent reminder of the nightmare that unfolded within. The neighbors say they still see lights flicker in the windows sometimes, though no one lives there anymore. Maybe it's just faulty wiring, or maybe it's the echoes of a family that never truly left. In the end, Chris Watts got what he wanted, to be alone, but it's not the freedom he imagined. It's a life haunted by the faces of those he silenced. And for the rest of us, it's a chilling reminder that sometimes evil doesn't wear a mask. Sometimes it smiles for camera, whispers at a crime. Some stories end in justice, some in silence. But every whisper tells a truth the world shouldn't forget. You've been listening to Whispers of the Crime. Subscribe for more haunting stories, and remember, the darkest secrets often live next door.